Right. Hey, everyone. So I know a lot of you are out there and looking for ways to make a difference in these uncertain times with Trump 2.0 at the helm.
Yeah.
It can feel pretty overwhelming.
Oh, absolutely.
So today we're going to dive deep into two resources that I think can offer some guidance and some inspiration.
Right.
First up, we have Indivisible, a practical guide to democracy on the brink. Think of it like strategic battle plans for resisting.
Okay.
And then we've got this Vox piece called Your Mileage May Vary, which takes a more philosophical approach to navigating this new reality.
Interesting.
So,
Kind of contrasting approaches there.
yeah, exactly. One's like the battle plan, the other's like the pep talk we might all need right now.
I like that. Yeah.
So let's start by unpacking Indivisible's take on the current political landscape.
Okay.
They argue that the recent election was more of a rejection of the status quo than like a wholehearted endorsement of Trump's agenda, which, gives you a bit of hope, right?
It does. It does.
Like, there's potential for backlash, but we can't be complacent.
Right.
And this actually aligns with a global trend.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, democracies worldwide have seen this decline in support for the governing party this year.
It seems like, widespread dissatisfaction, not necessarily a love for Trump's, specific ideology,
Right.
played a significant role in his victory.
And they even highlight how the county map visually reflects this.
Oh, yeah.
Almost every single county swung towards Trump.
Oh.
Makes the challenge seem pretty daunting when you look at it that way.
Yeah, no, it's true. The national swing was substantial.
Right.
But I think if you look a little closer at the battleground states, you can see a crucial detail there.
Okay.
The swing towards Trump was smaller in those states, likely due to, targeted campaigning and a strong ground game effort in those states.
So it shows that organized action,
Yeah,
even amidst a national trend, like it can have an impact.
exactly.
So we're not totally powerless.
No, not at all.
But how do we channel that power effectively?
Yeah.
Indivisible leans heavily on this concept of constituent power,
Okay.
essentially reminding us that even in these turbulent times, elected officials still care about re-election.
It makes sense.
And therefore, the people they represent.
they want to be seen as responsive to their constituents.
Exactly.
But as Indivisible points out, we need to adapt our strategies from, back in 2017.
Right.
The political landscape has shifted.
Yeah.
Republicans are more unified now. The media landscape has shrunk.
Yeah.
And politicians have become more adept at avoiding accountability.
Right. So blasting a tweet or signing an online petition, it's just not going to cut it anymore.
No, it's not enough.
Indivisible, they provide this really helpful chart that breaks down what actually gets officials' attention.
Okay, like what?
Things like phone calls, in-person visits, local media coverage.
Those are much harder to ignore. Yeah, it emphasizes the importance of being strategic and understanding the pressure points that truly influence those in power.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the meat of Indivisible, the three big plays for resistance that they lay out.
All right, let's hear it.
They emphasize 2026 as this critical year.
Okay.
First up,
Yeah.
saying NO to what they call Project 2025. It's this conservative plan aimed at dramatically reshaping the federal government if a Republican wins in 2024.
Interesting.
So stopping harmful policies at the federal level and building that national opposition is key here.
Okay, makes sense.
Now, the second play,
Right.
this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
It's all about leveraging the power of what they call blue state trifectas, states with a Democratic governor and legislature.
Okay.
Since 2017, there's been a significant increase in these trifectas,
Oh, wow.
giving blue states a real opportunity to resist Trump's agenda in a way we didn't have before.
I see. So what exactly does a blue state trifecta mean, and why is it so significant in this context?
Well, basically, a blue state trifecta means the Democratic Party controls both the governorship and both chambers of the state legislature.
Okay.
This unified control allows blue states to pass legislation and implement policies that directly contradict or counter federal policies enacted by the Trump administration.
So they can kind of become havens of resistance.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So think about it. Blue states could enact laws protecting immigrants, expanding healthcare access, even creating legal funds to help those targeted by Trump's policies.
Right. So it's not just about protecting people. It's also about demonstrating a viable alternative.
Precisely. It's about showcasing that a different approach, a more humane and inclusive approach, is not only possible but already happening in many parts of the country.
I like it, yeah.
And the third play focuses on, you guessed it,
Elections.
elections, specifically protecting and winning the 2026 midterms. Indivisible argues that these midterms are absolutely crucial because the officials elected then will be in charge of administering the 2028 presidential election.
That's a good point. Yeah, if election deniers gain control of those key positions, they could potentially undermine the integrity of the 2028 election.
Yeah, it's not just about winning, it's about ensuring the democratic process itself remains intact.
Absolutely.
So every race matters, from governor to secretary of state,
Yeah.
even down to your local school board.
Right.
But let's transition to that Vox piece for a moment.
Ah, okay.
You know, you mentioned earlier feeling anxious about the risks of speaking out.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of folks out there feel the same way. It's a heavy thing to grapple with.
Now, the Vox article really digs into these personal anxieties. It talks about how this moment in history, with its heightened drama and political polarization, has really exposed our interconnectedness. It forces us to ask ourselves, are we willing to act for the collective good even when personal risk is involved?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
And the article draws this parallel to the Holocaust, highlighting the moral dilemmas people face then.
Wow.
Should they risk their own safety to help others?
Right.
It's a sobering comparison, but it underscores the gravity of our current situation and the importance of moral courage.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I think it's important to remember that the level of risk for most Americans right now is still relatively low compared to what people face in full-blown authoritarian regimes.
That's true.
So we have a window of opportunity to act before things potentially escalate.
Yeah. We need to use this time wisely.
Right, let's channel that anxiety into action.
Exactly.
The Vox piece also draws this interesting parallel to the biblical story of Queen Esther.
Oh, okay.
She didn't just barge into the king's court and demand change.
No.
She was strategic.
Right.
She built alliances, planned carefully, and ultimately saved her people.
So it's a reminder that impulsive action isn't always the most effective. We need to think strategically, connect with others, and ensure our actions have the greatest impact.
Yeah, and that's where the power of local action, as emphasized in Indivisible, comes into play.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Let's talk about that. So local action.
Yeah, Indivisible really hammers home this point, that while individuals may feel powerless, groups are not.
Right.
They highlight this incredible network of local indivisible groups that are already active across the country.
Oh, cool.
These groups offer a sense of community, actionable steps, and access to resources and support from the national organization.
It sounds like a really great way to plug in and channel your energy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that sense of community is so vital right now.
Oh, well, sure.
It's easy to feel like isolated and overwhelmed, in these times.
Totally.
But connecting with others who share your concerns, that can be so empowering.
Yeah.
These groups offer a space to process your feelings, share ideas, and find strength in collective action.
And Indivisible is very clear that, like, they're not a new organization.
Right.
They've been around for a while.
Yeah.
In fact, their roots go back to those, like, massive protests that erupted after Trump's first election back in 2016.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
I remember those.
Yeah.
I always kind of thought of those as more spontaneous.
Yeah, a lot of people do.
Like outpourings of anger and frustration.
Exactly.
But they were actually fueled by years of grassroots organizing by groups like Indivisible.
Exactly. Those protests demonstrated the power of collective action,
Yeah.
and they had a tangible impact on policy.
For example.
Well, they helped stall the repeal of the Affordable Care Act,
Okay.
contributed to the blue wave in the 2018 midterms,
Right.
and sent a powerful message to the world that Americans would not stand idly by while democracy was under threat.
So we're not starting from scratch.
Exactly.
There's already like an infrastructure for resistance in place,
Right.
a blueprint for action, and a growing awareness of the stakes.
Yeah. We've learned some valuable lessons from the past few years, and we can apply those lessons to the challenges ahead.
So it's not just about resisting Trump 2.0, it's about building upon the progress that's already been made and taking it to the next level.
I like that. Yeah.
And Indivisible provides some very concrete ways to do that.
Okay.
They emphasize the potential of local and state level action,
Right.
particularly in those blue states.
Right. The blue state trifectas.
Exactly. They argue that blue states have a unique opportunity to push back against Trump's agenda. to be laboratories of progressive policy, and to demonstrate that another way is possible.
Like creating pockets of resistance.
Yes.
Sanctuaries where progressive values can flourish,
Yeah.
where people can find refuge from the worst excesses of the Trump administration.
I think it's also about sending a message to the rest of the country.
Yeah.
You know, to people living in those red states, that they're not alone,
Yeah.
that there are places where their values are upheld and their rights are protected.
Okay. That's all great for those in blue states.
Yeah.
But what about folks living in red states?
Right.
What can they do?
That's a good question.
It can feel incredibly discouraging when you're surrounded by people who just don't share your values.
Indivisible acknowledges that it's a tougher battle in those red states, but they still emphasize the importance of local organizing.
Good.
Even in the reddest of states, there are pockets of blue cities, towns, communities where progressive values are strong.
Right.
It's about finding those pockets, connecting with like-minded individuals and organizations, and building that base of support.
So it's about planting those seeds of resistance,
Yeah.
nurturing those pockets of hope, and building the foundation for future change.
It might feel like an uphill battle, but it's essential work.
And remember, even small actions can have a ripple effect.
Right.
Sharing your personal experiences.
Yeah.
Highlighting the impact of Trump's policies on your community.
Right.
Amplifying the voices of those most affected.
It's about humanizing the resistance and reminding people that this isn't just an abstract political battle. It's about real people's lives.
But it's also about connecting with people on a human level.
Yeah.
You know, having those difficult conversations with friends and family who might be on the fence. Or who might not fully grasp the gravity of the situation.
It's about meeting people where they are.
Right.
Listening to their concerns and finding that common ground.
Yeah, and remembering that we're all Americans, regardless of our political differences.
Exactly. We might disagree on policy, but we all share a common stake in the future of our country.
Exactly.
We need to find ways to bridge those divides and build a more united and just society.
Indivisible reminds us that this is not just a fight for the next 2 years.
It's a fight for the future of democracy.
Exactly. And as we've discussed, the 2026 midterms are going to be absolutely crucial.
Oh, absolutely.
The people we elect then will be in charge of administering the 2028 election.
We need to be thinking long-term,
Right.
building a movement that can sustain itself and ultimately reclaim power.
And that means investing in the infrastructure of democracy.
Right.
Supporting organizations that are working to protect voting rights, combating voter suppression, and ensuring that everyone has access to the ballot box.
Protecting the very foundation of our democracy.
Speaking of protecting democracy, one thing we haven't really touched on is the whole digital landscape and the role it plays in all of this.
Oh, that's a good point. It's easy to forget about the importance of digital security and preparedness, especially with, someone like Elon Musk controlling so much of the digital sphere now.
It's a little unsettling.
Right.
Yeah.
Our online lives are just as vulnerable as our offline lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Perhaps even more so in this digital age.
Yeah.
Indivisible dedicates a whole section to this, to operating under what they call authoritarian creep.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Offering practical tips on safeguarding data, encrypting communications, and being mindful of what we share online.
So it's not just about marching in the streets or calling our senators.
No, it's also about being savvy and vigilant in our digital lives.
We need to become like digital activists.
Right.
Armed with the tools and knowledge to navigate this increasingly complex and often treacherous online landscape.
Precisely. And one of the most crucial aspects of digital activism is combating disinformation.
Right. Huge problem.
Huge. Trump and his allies are masters of manipulating the media, twisting narratives, and spreading outright lies.
Yeah, it's scary how effective they are at it.
We need to be vigilant about fact-checking information, calling out propaganda when we see it, and promoting accurate and reliable sources.
It's like we need to become this digital truth squad,
I like that.
armed with critical thinking skills and a commitment to truth and accuracy.
But it's not just about debunking lies.
Yeah.
It's also about promoting positive stories, highlighting the good work that's being done, and amplifying the voices of those who are working to make a difference.
Counter their negativity with our own hope and optimism. Showcase the power of collective action, the resilience of the human spirit, and the unwavering belief that a better world is possible.
We need to inspire people to believe that change is within reach.
Okay, so Indivisible provides this framework for action.
Right.
Vox offers this kind of moral compass.
Yeah.
And we, the people, have the power to make a difference.
That's the key.
But I know a lot of people are feeling overwhelmed, unsure of where to start.
Right. It can feel like a lot.
It can.
And Indivisible offers a very simple but powerful piece of advice. Find your local group.
Yes.
They have chapters all over the country ready to welcome you with open arms.
They'll give you that sense of community.
Yeah.
Provide you with concrete actions you can take.
Right.
Connect you with a network of support.
Help you channel that energy and anxiety into something productive and meaningful.
Exactly.
And if there isn't a group in your area, start one.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be anything fancy.
No, just gather a few like-minded individuals, meet regularly, brainstorm ways to make a difference in your community.
And remember,
Yeah.
even small actions can have a ripple effect.
And as that Vox piece reminds us, with that quote, who knows if it's for a time like this that you were made queen?
Oh, I love that quote.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe this is your moment to step up, to use your unique talents and passions to make a difference.
That's a great point. Everyone has something to offer.
Yeah.
Some skill or talent that can be put to use in this fight for democracy.
Absolutely.
Whether it's organizing, writing, speaking, fundraising,
Right.
or simply listening and offering support.
Yeah.
Every contribution matters.
Okay, so now that we've covered the key takeaways from Indivisible and the Vox article,
Yeah.
let's wrap up this deep dive with some final thoughts.
That's great.
And perhaps some actionable steps for those listening who are ready to get involved.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest takeaways from both of these resources is that, we're not alone in this.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a whole movement out there.
A network of individuals and organizations dedicated to, protecting democracy and fighting for a more just and equitable future.
Yeah, that's so important to remember, especially when,
Yeah.
when those feelings of fear or hopelessness start to creep in.
Oh, totally.
We're part of something much larger than ourselves.
Right.
And that collective power is what will ultimately make a difference.
And that brings me to what Indivisible refers to as their fourth play.
Oh, yeah?
But they say it's less of a strategic play and more of a guiding principle.
Oh, right. Stay alive.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not about, being passive or avoiding the fight.
Right.
It's about recognizing that this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
We need to pace ourselves, prioritize our well-being,
Right.
and find sustainable ways to engage in this long-term struggle.
Exactly. Indivisible emphasizes that burnout is real.
Oh, yeah.
And it can be detrimental to the movement as a whole.
Absolutely.
So they encourage folks to find a balance between taking action and taking care of themselves.
Self-care is not selfish. It's essential.
I love that.
Yeah, we can't pour from an empty cup.
Right.
So make sure you're getting enough sleep, eating well, connecting with loved ones, and engaging in activities that bring you joy and replenish your energy.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's like that oxygen mask analogy, right?
Exactly.
You have to put your own mask on first before you can help others.
Exactly.
And speaking of helping others, let's talk about some concrete steps folks can take if they're feeling ready to jump in and get involved.
All right. So where do we start?
Well, Indivisible really stresses the power of, local action. They have chapters all across the country.
Right.
Connecting with a local group is a fantastic way to plug in,
Yeah.
find community,
Yeah.
and get involved in on-the-ground efforts.
They make it pretty easy to find a group, too.
Yeah, they do. And they even offer resources and guidance for those who want to start their own local group if one doesn't already exist in their area.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a huge formal thing. It could be as simple as gathering a few friends, neighbors, or colleagues who share your concerns
Yeah.
and brainstorming ways to make a difference in your community.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the impact of even small actions.
Right.
Every phone call to a representative, every letter to the editor, every conversation with a friend or family member can contribute to a shift in awareness and momentum.
It's like those ripples in a pond.
Yeah.
Even the smallest action can create a ripple effect that spreads outward,
Right.
influencing others and ultimately creating a wave of change.
I like that analogy.
Yeah, and remember, there are countless ways to contribute to the movement beyond, like traditional activism.
Oh, absolutely.
If you're a writer, use your words to amplify the voices of those most affected by Trump's policies.
If you're an artist, create art that inspires hope and resistance.
Yeah, if you're a teacher, educate your students about the importance of civic engagement and critical thinking.
Everyone has something unique to offer.
Exactly.
And every contribution, no matter how big or small, is valuable. Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I
Yeah.
want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay.
The fight for democracy is not a spectator sport. It requires each and every one of us to participate, to engage, to raise our voices.
Right.
And yes, it can be scary, it can be challenging, but
Yeah.
it's also incredibly empowering.
Absolutely.
Because when we come together, when we organize, when we refuse to give up hope, we become a force to be reckoned with.
We become the guardians of democracy,
Yes.
the protectors of freedom, the champions of a better future.
The future is uncertain, but one thing is for sure. We're in this together, and together we will prevail.
Thanks for listening, everybody.